Vayelech Moshe, Vayidaber. Beginning of Parshas Vayelech, steht in Ramban, Vayelech, where did Moshe Rabbeinu go? Sagt der Ramban, if the Moshe Rabbeinu gave his last shir, Parshas Nitzavim, the whole Klal Yisrael was gathered. They went back to the Machne Yisrael. And Vayelech Moshe from the Machne Levaya to Machne Yisrael, steht in Ramban, Lechabdam, Ka'adam haniftar mechaveroi, V'neitel reshus lipater mimenu. Moshe Rabbeinu Pasha went to say goodbye, but not when the Klal Yisrael was gathered by him. They went back L'Olam, and he went to them to say goodbye. Shiva, there was no time to say goodbye. Reb Shlomo, you were in Neitel Rishus. You left us, reeling, stunned. But the emes is, if we look back at the last kufa, it's be'emes, it's been mentioned, it's Mavel Orion, it's Mamish Mavel Orion, the Tkifis Hadas, the Gvuras HaNefesh that we saw by the Rashiva. It was as hard as it is for us. It must have been so much harder for him. With his last kaiches pashit, he pushed himself. There shouldn't be the Agmas Nefesh. The yeshiva should function normally. And he said, if people will know that I'm a chayla, they're not going to want to talk to me. They're not going to ask me things. And he wants to be available. And he handled mamish kol davar gadol v'kan. He answered every phone call. He handled every davar kan. And you could hear him panting on the phone, mamish, with his last ounce of energy. And some of us realize that there is something dreadfully wrong. And I have to say, I couldn't halt Chaim. I said to Reb Shlomo, I'm not asking you any questions. I just want you to know we're with you. We're davening for you. He said, yeah, have me in mind. I said, Reb Shlomo, we have you in mind, not just in Rafa'enu, but in Al Ziknei Amcha Beis Yisrael. How many people are there in the world saying on your level? It's not for me. It's not for me to speak about Reb Shlomo's darga and learning. But those who know it's going to sound like Guzmois, what I'm saying. But his shlita on his sugya was phenomenal, Pashut. Everything was with such clarity and such oimik. And Reb Baron Kreiser said about Reb Nachum that given Reb Nachum als Bar Mitzvah Bacher and Branovich. Reb Shlomo was Reb Shlomo als Younger Bacher. When he started out by Reb Feivel, and then Reb Feivel set him up, Libadal Chaim, Tevim with Agoin, Reb Yankiv Shlita, and they became inseparable after that. They spoke Keseda, and learning hours and hours. And when he went to Reb Paler, someone told me over, he doesn't remember Reb Shlomo by Gemara. He just remembers Reb Shlomo at Reb Paler's side. They took walks together. They spoke for hours. And he told me he never forgot anything that Reb Paler said. So when he started out, he had the sugyas, he had the raid, it was all munach bekufsa. But it's not the pshat that he had the sugya better, tifa, shtarka. He pashut. We build the sugya. We grub, we gribble, we mucha. We build the sugya from bottom up. He came from above. I don't know how to describe it. Those who know that I'm saying, what I'm saying is richtig, and those that don't know, was kann ich sagen? It was a totally different level of understanding. I have no words to explain it. It was a different darga. It was a hecher neshama, carved out from a hecher of welt, with a hecher of tfisa, sayin learning, sayin agada. 35 years ago, I've heard from Rabbi Yankiv, I can't make these Hagdoris. Have I heard from Rabbi Yankiv, he's Zecher from the G'dayli Hador in Havana. And many of the Yesodis that he spoke about over the past few years, he worked them out 35, 40 years ago. Everything was worked out. Like was mentioned before, he was constantly harving and working and being misada. And it comes to mind the Chazal, Kishamei Shmuel HaKatan, they were Taylor, Maftechai, Upinkasai al Arainai, V'haya Rabbi Gamliel, V'Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah, Maspidin, and they said, Al-Zeh Roi Lifkais, Al-Zeh Roi L'Sabel, Notel Shmuel HaKatan Kol Chamudisha Ba'elam V'Holachloi. And Al Kopanim, for the Welt I can't speak, aber in unserer Beis Medrash, Notel Reb Shlomo Kol Chamudisha Ba'elam. Al-Zeh Roi Lifkais. That will be zeicher to see such a thing again. Very best. And like my father Shlita mentioned, Gadlus B'Torah goes bad bevad with Gadlus and Midas. If Shlomo's Hanhaga, his sensitivity, his Akaras HaTov, was lahafli. I want to say over a few maises. Maybe we could learn something, take away something. Reb David Ribner told me the following story. Our Chashva Balipta Balkairi, Reb Yudi Wolman, made a chasana in Lakewood. Reb Shlomo was then a Rosh Kail. And Reb David set out to the chasana, and he gets a call from Reb Shlomo. He says, David, where are you? He says, I'm setting out from Flatbush. So he asked Reb Shlomo, what do you need? He took the bus to Lakewood for the chasana. He wound up at the wrong hall. And he doesn't want to stir his mishpach. He was hoping that Reb David could pick him up. Okay, say that. It's not shaykh. He found his way to the chasana. And so Reb David drove him home from the chasana. And as he's dropping him off, it's 12 o'clock at night. And he says to Reb Shlomo, this took you 9 hours. Are you frustrated? Are you? Reb Shlomo was the gewaltige masmid. Reb Shlomo said to him, being mishtatef in a chaver simcha by me is like putting on tefillin. It's the same chiyuv as putting on tefillin. Whatever it takes, that's what you have to do. That's aleph. And Beis, he says, Reb Yudi is mitzvah me every week with Kriyas HaTorah. How could I not go to a simcha? Who thinks that way, Rabbi say? We're all yaitz of Kriyas HaTorah. How many people think that there's somebody being mitzvah them in Kriyas HaTorah, that the chayiv hakaras HaTorah? Recently, it was mentioned of Shlomo's Esek in Daled Minim. There's a Yid, a Talmud Chacham, Rabbi Eliezer Stolzenberg, who sells Daled Minim in the neighborhood. And Rabbi Shlomo always bought every year for the Shiva Rebbaran, for himself. This year, this Rabbi Eliezer Stolzenberg couldn't sell in Brooklyn. Laida, he was supposed to sell for Rabbi Avram Zuk, all of us show him that didn't work out, Kamuvin. And he was in Monsey. And I also bought there. So I called him up, I said, Eliezer, I don't know how we're going to do this, I'm very busy. I don't know if I can make it to Monsey. He says, it's not a problem, I'm going to send you an esrog with Reb Shlomo. I said, Reb Shlomo? He was so shvach. Yeah, Reb Shlomo is coming to buy Daled Minim. I checked it out with Reb Shimmy, they were set to go. Reb Shlomo said, for a mitzvah, you have to go out of your comfort zone. And it was pashut. There's Hadassim to be found in Brooklyn, and there's Esregim to be found in Brooklyn. But he bought by him every year. It's pashut. He's going to travel to Monsey. He's going to schlep himself to Monsey, whatever it takes, because that's hakaras hatov, that's loyalty. And if he's stuck in Monsey, Reb Shlomo is going to Monsey, it's not even a suffix. children mentioned before that gewaldige chavivas. I still have the image in my mind when Reb Shlomo was sitting Shiva for his father. And Reb Shlomo described to me with tears streaming down his face how when his father, Reb Avram alav Shalom, was so sick and he brought him the Daled Minim, how aufgelebt he became. The chvivas von mitzvahs. And by Reb Avram's Levaya, the Shiva Rabban spoke, and uncharacteristically, he described him as an Eved Hashem. Rabban would never use such an expression. An Eved Hashem. And that Eved Hashem, that midah will get carried over. Shlomo's Avodah was with the gewaldige tznius. As was mentioned, you couldn't tell anything. Everything was so natural. After he was diagnosed, Shlomo was on his way to a simcha, and they passed the kever of a gewisse Adam Gadol. And Shlomo says he wants to daven by this kever. Then he says, maybe not. Not sure, it's a fakbik. So Shimi asked him, this Gadol was known as a Kaddish V'tar. How could he go to the kever without going to the mikveh first? Right? We can go to the mikveh first. But there's a bacha driving. He's not going to go to the mikveh and the bacha is going to know about it. Das nicht. He'd rather not go to the kever. Without the mikveh, he's not going. And that somebody should know if it's not beinei levein kainei. If Shemi doch andere dinki yadua. That a bacha should know. He's not doing it. Shemi worked it out. Surreptitiously slip him into a mikveh Reb Shlomo. That was the gewaldige tznius. You couldn't tell. The davening. I know he would tell me sometimes, I'm davening for this, I'm davening for that. You couldn't see anything. You couldn't. Azaydus by Grace Bali Aveda by Grace Bali Moyach. So the same shel tzaddikim is meisim tovim, as a ben is nimshach from the pnimius ha'av, their meisim are nimshach from a pnimius, and it's altus b'tznius. Wasn't shaykh to see b'chlal. At home, his lulav was kaminig ari. His nanuim were kaminig ari. In yeshiva, he had a different lulav. In yeshiva, the nanuim were kaminig Ashkenaz. Everything was like that. Alts b'tznius. But it was a gewaldige oived, a gewaldige medaktik. I'm not 100% sure, but I think I have rishus to say this. Reb Shlomo didn't drive. And he had different reasons that he explained why he didn't drive. But miduchtzach, that he confided in somebody once, and if not, it's past for them. When you drive, you have to look to the right and you have to look to the left. Who knows what you're going to see? If you're in the passenger seat, you can look down. He was gewaldig ogehit. And I have the image engraved in my mind. It's 40 years ago. I was sitting with him in his house, and he was sitting in his easy chair there with his pensive look. And he said to me, Rabbi Shalom Abu Chatzeri, the Baba Sali, said that everything he was zeicher to machmas shmiras einayim. And he wasn't saying it as a conversation piece. You could see this was something that he was, by him, an ideal to live with, to live for. I just want to describe, Chaim Tzvi said he never saw his father sweat. I wasn't prepared to say this. I just want to describe a little bit what it was like to learn with Reb Shlomo. He could read through long, complicated Rishonim. He would read through a long Ramban and a long Rashba and a long Ritva and Mamish like a Chacham being Baitak a Chalaf. He picked up on every diktuk, and then he would sit down, sit back in a chair in deep concentration. Could be a half hour, could be 45 minutes. and he would write out a shtickle Torah, not shayach. But everything took place as a pneumistic. You couldn't see, just he was sitting there as a. But he was an under a welt. And he was kaseder, I was mentioned. Kaseder, working and working and working. We can't start ourselves too. Biskarov said he never printed a shtickle if he didn't work on it for 6 months. That means in some place he was working on the shtickle. Not telling ourselves too to earlier diarists, but by Reb Shlomo, everything, kaseder. I was able to watch. He worked out Yesaidis, and they developed and they blossomed. Go on and on. But I want to be Messiah here with an akuda that basically Reb Shlomo told me das darf man sagen. This is the right thing to say, Baruch. The Eilim is asking, it's about the Geshaila, was wird sein, how are we going to carry on? It was mentioned recently, a word from the Reshiva in my Mori Pachad Yitzchak, that in Berchus Ahava Rabbah steht, v'sein b'libeinu l'hoven l'haskil v'chulu. It doesn't say anything about Simchas HaTorah. In Avas Eilam steht, v'nismach b'divrei Seirasach. Basepis. As the Reshiva was masbir, the bracha is Av. I have a Salem, I have a Rabba, I have Becher B'Ami Yisrael, B'Av. The bracha is Av. The Shpitz Ava, Sinus HaTorah, and the Sefer Shaldavar is Nagila v'nismacha b'shuasach. But the klal is Lahagid Ba'Beker Chastecha v'Emunascha Ba'Leilos. Beker is his man of chesed, Laila is his man of din, of golus, of chayshach. Is by Yom we can talk about Yeshuasan Shal Yisrael, but by Laila we can't talk about the Simcha B'Yeshuasai. But Klal Yisrael holds on to the Yeshua. V'nismach b'divrei seirasecha kol aloi mitayra b'Laila chut shel chesed moshuch alav b'yom. The Asik, the Amelus B'Torah B'Layla as a kayak to be mahapich the Layla to a yom. The Simchas HaTorah brings us to Nagila v'nismacha b'Yeshuasai. Das heißt that the ärgste Chayshach and the worst sorrow and the darkest times for the Klal Yisrael, aber v'nismach b'divrei seirasecha, that you can never take away from us. Reb Shlomo's last pa'ula, and this was his goodbye, and this was his nifta mechavere. His last pa'ula for the yeshiva was to organize, to make sure that there'll be a Shmini Atzeres, that there'll be the Haimna HaKofis. That the Nismach b'divrei seirasecha shouldn't be gestart. And in the last message the yeshiva sent out, which Reb Shlomo himself dictated, Elu should please daven, there's a serious infection. But that was the nusach, nothing more. Shouldn't be a pachad, the Elu should hold on to a hope. But the ikar is, the Simchas HaTorah shouldn't be gestart. And what's going to be weiter, and how we're going to carry on weiter, that's the message. V'nismach b'divrei seirasecha. We're going to horav in Cheskes HaBatim. We'll be mechadish the way we can be mechadish. With our kachas. When we look back and we see the gewaldige Mesiris, the Mesiris Nefesh, and the Mesiris and the Chvivas, that Reb Shlomo was naig with. He was naig with us with Azah Chaverschaft. This last year, didn't want to stir the Elam, didn't want to cause the Elam tzara nagmas nefesh. didn't want to stir the Yom Tif, gave away his last koiches. V'nismach b'divrei Seirasecha. With our melus b'Torah, for our simchas ha'Torah, will prevail, will be menatzeach, and will be zeicha to see that from the Nagila, from the Nismach b'divrei Seirasecha, it vaxen the Nagila v'nismacha b'Yishuasecha, kein yiratzen. I just want to be a Messiah on behalf of the Olam, for myself, my Chaverim, and the whole Olam, to ask Mechila. Reb Shlomo was takenoig mamish ka'achu kureya. He really didn't see himself as something different. He treated us mamish like equals. He was light years ahead. But it was ka'achu kureya. And maybe Chalila, we were pagan. And I want to ask Mechila Befratz in the last Kufa that maybe we weren't danim l'kav schus. Wasn't able to say shiurim always, wasn't able to be in yeshiva always. He's for Shlomo Meichel. He made this calculation. He understood that people will say that. But it was Kedai. Azar Gadlus, he knew people would be talking and he knew people would be critical. He said it Pamali. I know that's what people will say, but it's Kedai that the yeshiva should function normally. It shouldn't be destabilizing. Like my father Shlita mentioned, this is our yeshiva. Yeshiva should be nimshah vaita. Ilan Movas Netzach.